disconnect between the superintendent and the principals and the teachers in the schools. Think about it. We've had 3 superintendents in the last, in the last 12 years since Mr. Brentley's been in office. And the reality is that not much has changed in that 12 years. So there's a layer of people between the superintendent and the teachers and the principals in the school, and they're not being held accountable by anyone. And they should be holding teachers accountable, because the reality is they are, in fact, reporting to somebody, and somebody should be making sure that it's getting done. And so you shouldn't have kids coming home with homework, and they have no clue as to what it is they're supposed to be doing. And I think that we spend a lot of time in the classroom in Pittsburgh, kids doing worksheets. Nobody's teaching. They're just handing them papers and saying, do this. Well, of course we're having difficulty and kids are having a hard time. I spent a lot of time in the schools in the East End, and I recall on just this past Thursday, I was in a classroom and children were bouncing off the walls. It was a mess. And there was a little boy sitting in front of me. And he kept looking at me saying, when you going to start? When you going to start? I said, I don't compete with these kids in the classroom. Their teacher can't handle them. That's not what I came here for. I'm a guest. But I looked at him and I said, you need to tell somebody. You need to go home and tell your mama to get you out of this class. Because there's no teaching going on here. And you, as parents, need to go look. You need to go to your children's classrooms and you need to sit and see what's going on. Is there any teaching going on in there? Or do you have a teacher who's telling them to be quiet and just giving them papers?
Okay, let's get Mr. Brentley and Ms. Freeman get their turn on this question.
I just want to respond to the parent's question. For 11 and a half years, as long as I've been on the board, every meeting or event that I attended, I tried to remind parents the school district is run, owned, and controlled by parents. When you get angry and when you get upset, you can change conditions. How? You do it through the PTAs, the PTOs, and the PSCCs. And the quick way that you want to resolve that problem is you get involved, take out a membership in your PTO, maybe run for one of the offices, or ask those members there, will you please place on the agenda, making it mandatory that the principal report to us every month. So every month, now you're sitting as a parent here, that principal has to come to you, give you a report on how many teachers called off, what's their rating, what's their evaluation, what concerns are you having. Then at the same time, it opens it up for you. Mr. Principal, are you aware that Ms. Jane Doe on the 2nd floor in room 201 is not connecting with the students? Oh no, Ms. Parent, I don't know. Let me look into it, and then you as a parent, you put on that principal. Mr. Principal, at next month's PTO meeting, I'd like a complete report on that teacher. You have to take control. Remember, all of our teachers are paid very well, and there are some, I've said it before and got in trouble, but I'll say it again. When that bell rings at the end of the day, some of those parents are getting, some of those teachers are out of the building before the kids are. But as a parent, when you organize and you just make your presence known, we're not going to tolerate that. And Mr. Principal, if that teacher continues to operate that way, we want to know, what are you doing? How are you evaluating them? And if so, if we're not satisfied, then at the next public hearing, you take it to the next level. Come to the public hearing, 622-3600. You get on the agenda, you get 3 minutes to speak your concerns, and if enough parents come out and voice the same concerns about Jane Doe, the principal, I guarantee you, things start to happen. You have the power, ma'am.
Ms. Freeman, let Ms. Freeman answer the same question.
Well, I agree with both of my colleagues here, but I also want to add another insight to it. Because I have a child with special needs, I have also felt that. When my son brings home notes, if he brings home notes, we had to put a procedure in place so I make sure that notes would come home. They were doing a lot in the classroom. As an example, math. I was never good at math, and now they teach math a different way. So I couldn't even help my own child. When he came home with, add and carry one, I'm like, do it this way. And he could not, I'm like, what's the problem? And my son is autistic, but he can do math, he can read, he's on level right now. But I couldn't. I felt so retarded. I'm like, why can't he catch on? Because I'm teaching him the way my teacher taught me 30 years ago. They teach it a whole different way now. So when they're bringing home and they can't catch it on, most of the time it's because the teacher is teaching in a different way. It took a while for me to catch on. So my responsibility was, which I'm sure both of you, it might be a little bit different, it might be similar, but when the child is in school, the teacher's responsibility is to teach. But let's look now, let's be careful. Our schools, Title I schools, are meaning that, how many kids are in the classroom? 22, about 22. One teacher, probably not a teacher aide, it's just one teacher.
Right, one teacher.
Okay, let me give you an example in our school. Now let's see, I'm not trying to justify, I'm just trying to show you that complete picture. There's 22 teachers, and my second grade teacher, Miss Ham's class. Miss Ham has been one of our dedicated urban sisters who's been a wonderful teacher. Miss Ham is now changing her career path. She's so burnt out, she's going back to school because these little bad A kids, 22 of them kids, the teachers are now not teaching. And you know why? Let's just be honest. Now, these kids come in not ready to learn. Let's be honest. Ready Freddy started here. Is that right? Ready Freddy started here. It didn't go to all schools. You get kids coming in 4 or 5 years old, they're coming into, most times don't even get the head start. They're going right to school. You see them in my line, they gotta walk. Here, you gotta lead me down the hall. I gotta walk behind you. Put your hands down. Don't snatch her hand. Don't touch her. I didn't see nothing like this. You gotta program kids, walk in a straight line, keep your hands down, be quiet, don't say nothing. Our kids are not coming in ready. They can't sit still. Wait a minute, I'm gonna answer you, baby. I am not trying to justify anything, but our kids are not coming in. They can't sit still and listen to a story. Their hands is moving, they're hitting, they're not coming in ready. 22 kids, and most of our kids in the second grade, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, are coming in with behavior problems. So you want to know what the teacher is doing in the classroom? If you got 22 kids in the classroom, 20 of them, God help me, 20 of them are being assessed. And the teacher has to spend whole classroom time, let me check this off, I got to observe, on 20 different kids. What are these behaviors? Now I got to write up an IEP plan. I got to make sure I take every little thing on 20 kids so they can get the additional support they need. How much time does it leave for a teacher to teach? Class is out of control. There's one teacher doing all these evaluations, no teacher's aid, and no money in the budget to get another teacher. Now, does that justify what the teacher is there to teach? I'm sorry she's got to do all these evaluations, but that's the reality of some of our classes. You do have to be an active parent in there, and you have to go back to that teacher and say, no, my son is not getting it. You're bringing some information home, and he doesn't get it. Make sure he gets it. It's still our responsibility. The teacher still has to teach. He's got to make those standards, hit those certain teaching points. All kids must make it. I'm sorry, our teachers are overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed.